live. I changed the view, so don't worry about it. It's cool. If you look back at the old videos, you'll see like the first 20 seconds of us being weird. Say hello to everybody. Hello and welcome. All right, so one thing I'm going to wait a little bit just to let you all relax. The beginning of these videos are always weird. Whoops. Okay. All right, welcome everybody who's tuning in here in our Zoom room and across the world, the universe, and the stars. Here at Nervous Ghost Press, we hope you are all healthy, happy, and warm. April is National Poetry Month, so not only does that mean you get a whole bunch of poets in the same place all the time for whatever craziness ensues, you also get a chance to join our very vibrant community of artists, speakers, downers, people who are happy, people who bring the party, people who are the party, and people who kill the party. But either way, you're part of the party. And so thank you for coming here and joining us for our second episode of the Nervous Ghost Press Open Mic as we celebrate National Poetry Month. Today we have a very special guest speaker who I will introduce later on. So you gotta stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. It's pretty exciting. Just saying. A little bit about Nervous Ghost Press and why we exist. We are independent. We are here for the community, of the community, by the community. We remember heartache, trauma, and we owe what we have now to our heartache and trauma, to our pain, to our compassion. And we use writing, and we believe that writing saves lives. We believe that writing is a tool that can bring us together and unify people who will otherwise never meet, who will choose not to meet. And you can show them that you have all the same stuff in your bones, in your body, in your blood that moves you, that pushes you, pulls you, and brings you to a greater existence, because that existence is with all of us together. A lot of the people that we have today, I know personally in my life, some of them know nobody else. And that is what is so beautiful about these online events. And as we get back into the world in our in-person events, is we meet people we've never met. We make friends in our industry that we've chosen, the industry that we love, and just our lives in general. Anyone always is appreciated. We want you here. We invite you, no matter where you're from. If you feel like you have a community, and if you feel like you don't, these open mics are yours. And so email us, contact us, call us, text us, tweet us. I'm not good at Twitter, but try it anyway. I'll figure it out, I'm sure. And these open mics are for that purpose, to let you share what you have to share, what you need to share, to bring you into a world that is here. It exists, and we're real, and we care just enough to kind of let you go on and on and on about whatever the hell you want to talk about. And we don't care just enough to not tell you to shut up after either. And so I appreciate everybody that joins us. I appreciate everybody that watches and views from home and after this video gets uploaded. Stay connected. I think it should be up there. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Nervous Ghost Live. Of course, email us, ghosts@nervousghostpress.org. and the website www.nervousghostpress.org. That website is also where you can find our first anthology, Writing for Life. It is comprised of 148 magnificent pages. I'm not going to tell you the paperweight because it's a trade secret. And you also find a Nervous Ghost Press journal where you can write all your thoughts, recipes, plots to, seek revenge on your enemy from third grade, because they do still deserve it, I promise. One thing that I want to share before I get into our first speaker, which is me, is about community. And one thing about community, and for a long time, I didn't know who my community was. And I pretended like I didn't know who it was. I pretended like it was where I was born, where I lived, and that was it. My community extended to the end of the block, and then it was someone else's community and not my own. And throughout the years, I realized that my community is everyone. Everyone, as long as you'll have me. Everyone, as long as I'll have you. My community is those who I disagree with, who I fight with, who I argue with all the time, who tell me, Matthew, shut the hell up. And my community are those who I listen to when they tell me to shut the hell up. And we trust each other. And Nervous Ghost Press community is your community. And we want to unify with that shared love of art, that shared passion for creativity, for what drives us to do what's scary, to find the beauty in the ugliness instead of a shared hatred of anything else. We want that shared love. We want that shared beauty, that shared passion. So email us if you ever feel like you need a friend, and I'll reply. I'll say hello, or I'll have somebody reply. And so very quickly, I'll read a short poem that I have here just to get us started. I've realized recently that it makes sense that I should get us started instead of trying to throw someone else on the spot. All right. Also, I'm learning about the internet. So comment, and subscribe. I don't know, they always do. They always point somewhere. So I want to point. We will be having a Q&A session later on. So if you're in and watching on YouTube, send us questions, communicate with us, ask the writers about where they are, where they're from, what inspires you, what makes you feel, what makes you cold, and just what makes you you. So here's my first poem. Skeletwins. Nightmares used to own me. Inside my dreams, I never was alone. Juxtaposed with happiness, all my sadness turned to hope. The memories of our younger days explain the reasons for my faults. After heartache and the funeral games, my heartbeat skipped and never stopped. Madness born before the storm. At night, the monsters come to feast. Tales of ghouls and goblins teach us. Sometimes love is for the beast. And so now, thank you. I will introduce our first speaker of the evening, who needs no introduction. However, will introduce themselves. And Rachel, go ahead and begin whenever you are ready.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'll be reading 2 poems. This one I wrote about my grandma. Your voice, I can hear it from within my heart. After you left your memory and life in my heart. Your voice is a sound of echoes that sound like a beautiful angel that sings in the light of hope. The way you left Earth is not how I want to remember you by. I wanna always remember your life, how it resembled a beautiful garden of fresh bloom flowers. Every spring, I think about you all the time, as I know the season is beautiful, like your heart that resembles flowers. Your voice echoes the sound of true beauty you always carried in your beautiful soul. Beautiful, like a garden of colorful flowers across the fields in California. This writing of mine is all about you, because Grandma, I miss you every day. I miss the sound of your angelic voice that knew how to comfort me when I was scared. Your presence, I reminisce from time to time, like I reminisce that one time you showed me how a little girl shall present herself. Grandma, I miss your presence. I miss hearing your voice, and although you didn't understand English and I couldn't speak Spanish, you and I had a sweet connection of still understanding one another, and that was the love we gave to each other. And here's my second one that I wrote. This one's called Hugs. I hate the way I have been feeling the past week. I miss you all so much. I normally don't like hugs, but the inside of my lonely heart is crying for a tight hug. A hug that one won't ever let go until we both know we are good. I hate saying bye. It's one of the worst words ever. I hate the feeling that I've been feeling the past week. I don't like hugs, but the inside of my lonely heart is crying for a tight hug. A hug that will last a lifetime of hope and love. I miss seeing you all in person. This Zoom stuff is not for me. I normally don't like hugs, but tonight I am in need of a tight hug. A tight hug of yours that will make me feel better.
Thank you, Rachel. A few things that your work reminds me of is I hate hugs. I hate them. I'll give you one-handed hug until the day I die, but you know what? Every once in a while, you got to wrap that other arm around. And it's so important. And that generational love that is unspoken, that crosses and transcends beyond language, beyond all of this, beyond everything else, is so important and so powerful. And I commend you for putting it into words, hopping on this Zoom that you don't like, and sharing it with the world. So again, thank you, Rachel. And I'm happy that you're here. All right, up next we have Richard. And I have words to say about Richard, but I'll hold them until later on. I'll make you marinate in the thought and the anxiety. All right, Richard, when you're ready, very excited, happy to see you. Hope you're doing well. And all right, take it. Nope. Hold on, we can't hear you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
All right. First of all, this is the first time I've seen you in ages. I've talked to you on the phone, but it's so good to see you, Matthew.
Thank you, you too.
So my name is Richard O'Brien, and I'm going to be reading one poem of mine and one poem of my father's. And the reason why I'm doing that is because he was the real poet in the family. This is my father, John O'Brien. He was an ecclesiastic muralist. He painted cathedrals and chapels across the United States. That's one of his chapels that he painted, and the State House. And when he could no longer paint, he had an accident, and he started to write. He became, in my view, one of the best writers I've ever read. He had a little guerrilla bit of guerrilla writing to him. There he is in his office on Bloor Street, Toronto. If you can see his desk is an overturned fruit crate box. It's back in 1971, and there's nothing but cigarettes in the room. So my poem is after my dad had died in 2001. And again, he's the poet. But this is what I wrote about him. I wrote that my father's house is empty. The thought stole my joy at traveling home. The artifacts, books, guns, medals, and other personal statuary that act as a signature of his character, presence, and being are gone. The walls have been painted and the carpet changed, and all the marks and markers of a man have been boxed, stored, or sold. I don't want to see that house empty and feel again a further loss of touch with him. It is a sad thing when a home, so full of life and personality, becomes a house. So that is my poem to my dad. Now, when my dad returned from World War II, he had been shot, he had been stabbed, he had been blown up by a hand grenade, and he was visibly and invisibly scarred. So when he began to paint, he could express some of what he saw through paint, and it was the same with writing. And this poem he wrote in 1971 in that office, and it's called I Remember, or I Once Passed. The language is a little blue. I once passed. I once passed an alleyway and saw a ghetto-sized rat poised to spring at me, fangs of pale Naples yellow bared, emitting a hissing, hawking threat, enraged at being disturbed in his ruminations among the overflowing garbage cans. The tableau could have been painted alla prima by Ben Shaw. Another time, I saw 3 fresh turds of dog shit steam a perfect 5-pointed star into snow cratered and blackened by shellburst in a study Whistler might have made. And in the gut-wrenched, bilious puke of a wino, I recognized a green that Vincent used at Arles. I've watched strung pearl tracer bullets climb and fill the Anzio night sky, converge on invisible droning bombers until the concussed air compressed my eardrums and the target trickled all earthward, all green, gold, and quicksilver horror. In the hiatus between seconds, I saw a young boy's uniform transformed into cardinal vestments reminiscent of a Renaissance fresco as he stumbled into eternity, and I accompanied him, tripping, falling, and rising in rude genuflection. Seared indelibly into the emotions of my mind are galaxies of forms, colors, compositions, odors, tactile memories, citron piss from a torn bladder, cobalt veins on chalk issuing the ichor of youth, the subtlety of oriental scroll painting and splattered brain curd, scorched murals of gutted architecture, chiaroscuro in the eerie lights of flares, velvet-footed assassins gliding through a monochrome of Prussian blue night. Butchered carcasses, sundered rib cages some artisan might have fashioned into a keyboard that only played notes of agony, and the myriad of other images that exploded in my mind long after the recording. I've heard the howling of incandescent minstrel-faced men as they clawed their ways out of flaming tanks, or colorful vibratos rising pure and clear above the orchestration of battle. Another time, while stuffing a comrade's entrails into Gothic plexus with trembling, powder-blackened fingers, the shamefully perverse thought shimmered through my mind at light speed, how like a woman. And in a cardiovascular ward, I witnessed Vermeer-complected saints vaulting upward when the deep-voiced defibrillators hummed their benedictions against their cool gray chests. Now I, who once cherished beauty in all of its manifestations, fear it with all of my corrupted senses, and rarely is there a time when I can divorce any aspect of it from the horrors I remember. I remember. That is my father's first poem that he wrote on the way to writing 5 unpublished books.
Thank you, Richard. One thing that when Dennis and I and the team and everybody that we work with and associate with and my friends and all of us, one thing that I truly believe about art is that art is all of it. Writing, music, dance, theater, painting, science, as far as you want to go, there's art someplace and somewhere. And one thing that I'm also trying to, and that, your words and your dad's words really spoke to me about, is the impact of generational art. And when we look back and we see where they were, who they were, what they did, what they said, and there's a strength in it. And, my grandpa was in his 90s and he still crushed my hand when I shook his hand. My hand feels so small just with the memory of it. And I think those memories, it transcends time and everything in between. And so thank you for honoring him and showing us and letting us, into the world. And we appreciate it.
Just a quick thing. My daughter has a little bit of that artistic bug that my father had, and this painting that's here is something that he did in '55. And I looked at her computer, and she was sketching a copy of that painting the other day. She's 9 years old, and it's almost exactly what he did, but with her own flair. It's just amazing.
That's so cool.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thank you, Richard. All right. Up next, we have the one and only Brenda.
Hi guys. I'm going to be reading one poem today. So I'll start. It's called What Now? Looking for something fulfilling. Does that mean I have to quit my current life? Put a line through it and start again. Crumple up the pieces that I'm so invested in. When you can't breathe about your life, like skinny pants that fit too tight, there's another word for that: anxiety. It's the silent killer of the society. The doctor said, take this prescription and you'll be just fine. And I think, will it work better if I take it with a glass of wine? Like a spoonful of sugar, it might make me merry and release all of the pressure of this life that I carry. I keep buying plants and then letting them die. Their death is not on purpose, it's this damn 9 to 5. Sometimes makes me forget that I'm here and alive. Then out of nowhere, one of my unwatered plant flowers bloom, making me remember that I came from the womb, not to live like nothing but work matters. And a new sense of purpose suddenly splatters all over my brain, all over my mind. It's like someone cracked the curtain open and the light of life suddenly shined. It went away like a bolt of lightning strikes. I got that feeling when your leg falls asleep. It's like tiny spikes. It's the feeling of waking up I couldn't deny. So I quit my job, and just like a butterfly, I sprang from the cocoon I had built for myself, like a mystical book that flies off the shelf, still not knowing where this journey will take me. I feel like a child again. Everything's new, like a baby. Starting over is scary, but I now know the world better. I'll use these new wings to fly, to let go and surrender.
Thank you, Brenda. Something I noticed in your poem that always confused me in my personal life, I suppose, perhaps, is plants. Because either plants are alive, or they feel things, or they don't feel things, and we can eat them without any guilt. But then the images of plants and growing and not growing and dying and living and sprouting and all of these different things, it's so powerful, and it carries so much strength. And also with your flying off the shelves, just like the words fly out of our faces and onto the paper, and then when we read them, it flies off the paper and into other people's faces. And it's this perfect cycle of, I feel sad, and so you're going to feel better. And then you feel sad and I feel better. And then we'll all feel better together. So thank you. Thank you, Brenda. All right, our next reader. And remember, everybody watching tomorrow and the day after and the day after, the day after, and then for all of eternity, we have our Q&A session after our last speaker. We'll have a short intermission, but not really. It's just when I'm going to introduce our special guest speaker, which is not yet. In case you thought it was you, it's not. So I want to remind everybody to communicate, ask questions, share comments, get to know us. Next month, we'll have our May open mic. I think it's on the 15th. And I'll repeat it later on. I think it is, yes, on May 15th. And sign up, email us. I always say yes. And you're welcome. You're honored. We want you here. And so anybody watching, sign up, www.nervousghostpress.org, ghosts@nervousghostpress.org. This next individual I have never met before in my life. They're coming from out of town, and they really illustrate the power and the amazingness of having these virtual events, and hopefully we can carry that connectivity, I don't know, whatever I'm trying to say, on and on and on into the future. I've never met them before. I'm excited that they're here. We're bringing people from all over the world. We're sharing. Hopefully you're not getting any added pressure on you now. It's unintended. But Amanda, thank you. Happy to see you. Happy to meet you. And have fun.
Hey, so no pressure at all. So my name is Amanda. I'm from Trinidad, and that's where I am right now. I used to live in LA, and that's how I know Gio. We went to the same school, and then I moved home. The reason I was like really excited about the previous reader, I think Brenda quitting her job, was because I quit mine too. And doing that during quarantine is kind of a lot. But my job was a lot, and I'll just say that because it's the pathway into, I think, this piece that I'm going to read, which is about when I worked at my job. I used to work with refugees, and I started to write about it once I left. So I'll just read some of it. They're doing it, he says. I'm coming, I say. I close my laptop. I'd already been watching. I shrug on a denim jacket and slide into my jeans. I make a call, pace, and leap into the car when it comes. The dark interior of the taxi feels oppressive, but no different from the darkness of the night. I'm in a tube. I don't know where to tell the driver to stop. I'd hastily keyed in a rough idea, a sports complex called the Oval, known mostly for its cricket matches, but it spanned a few blocks, and the background of the live videos I'd watched on Facebook were hard to pin down. As we approach it, I regard its steep walls, seeming tall in the darkness. I've always found its walls imposing, even during the day, hopelessly vertical, like a steep cliff. It's the walls I see first before I see the people, until the traffic backs up as cars stop to look at them or to honk and shout something out the window, and I have no choice but to face what I've come to see. Let's stop here, I say, and get out and watch. A long, tidy line of people wraps around a side of the building, the side that typically faces a well-traversed road, a road currently backed up with traffic. Less tidy are the clusters of people sitting on the pavements, and snatches of green spaces nearby, clutching identical, featureless brown envelopes. Some people are sprawled out and flat on their backs, either sleeping or very, very still. I see mostly adults of various ages, folks wearing caps or jackets. They seem oddly languid and relaxed, some folks in conversation with companions, some looking amusedly at the whole scene, laughing even. At the time, it struck me the observer as odd, but now I reflect and think of the ways the body reacts to exhaustion and to cruelty, and how easy it is to assume outrage when you're not the latter's target. Without exception, these folks are Venezuelans, people the government of Trinidad and Tobago insists on calling economic migrants, whom the UN Refugee Agency insists on calling people of concern. At the time, I worked for the latter. During my frequent bouts of insomnia, a condition that plagued me during my time at UNHCR, I toss and turn and think, isn't it crazy that the entire fate of tens of thousands of people depends on language, semantics? And though a simple drowsy read of the situation, it often served as a way to demystify a complex scenario to outsiders, to the folks who weren't receiving desperate messages on their phone, asking whether they should register with the government, or for food, or for a place to stay, or to report on how long they'd waited in line, or that they were thinking of traveling to Tobago, that's the next island over, because they heard that the lines weren't as long there, and they were worried about registering on time, to friends and family looking for clean, factual insight. I tried to explain the refugee issue to them without losing them. It's a task when the explainer's heart is breaking for her people, a colonized nation who has somehow found a way to replicate and enact the violence it received on another, and is still expected to straighten her tie, smooth her shirt, and begin with the diplomat's veneer of distance, of professionalism, smiling objectively. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Amanda. You know, one
Thank
thing,
you.
a question that I have, and of course you don't have to answer this right now, is this could be for our Q&A later on, but you know, listening to you to you share about semantics and then how our bodies react to also being exhausted and lying on the ground. And, you know, how do you explain to people what hurts you? And I think that's something that a lot of artists in general, and what we fight with when we're trying to put something into words in a way that goes beyond just the words, and it goes beyond and into somebody else, where if there is that language issue and kind of barrier that either we put up or other people put in front of us, and we break it down, how do we do it, why do we do it, and how successfully perhaps can we? But I want to save all my real questions for the Q&A, so, you know, get ready. I got my notes here, see? But thank you, Amanda. I'm so happy that you're joining us, and I'll definitely
Thank
be in
you.
touch, because this makes me feel so awesome to have people join in. Okay, so our next speaker is here someplace. I see some, I don't know. It's not that I don't like the Raiders. However, yeah,
Here anyway.
you know. All right, so our next speaker, Alberto.
All right. Hi, I'm Alberto.
Take it away.
I got 2 poems today. One's called My Friend, and the other one's called I Can't Wait. So I'm gonna say my friend right now. We've been through a lot. Feels like a lifetime. We've gotten to know each other very well. Together we committed our first crime. During school, we couldn't wait for that bell and see what we could have possibly get into. Perhaps a fight or even a quick cigarette. Your skin always beautiful like the color blue. Every time we always took flight like a jet. Superman had his red cape, I had my blue flannel. Whenever we beat a vato down, we were invincible. We couldn't lose, we were in the best shape. Yeah, we're always hated for being so cynical. No one knew what I was going through. You always held me close when I would. You were trying to hold me together like glue. Take my pain away, I'll smoke this backwood. I couldn't hold it together because I was a screw up. Blowing my brains out should have been the move. What would have missed is degenerate. You made me realize something though. The sadness doesn't have to be the future of my fate. Life is beautiful like the color of your blue. There's so much to live in this world, like the smile of mi abuelita when she would see me, or the warm hugs that give me familia when I see them. I may not be a perfect person in this life, but the love around me will always win. I may not wear you as I used to before. I always cherish you for being there for me. Then I got Can't Wait. And this is a sonnet. I'm not sure if I wrote this correctly, but it is a sonnet at least. I can't wait for that special day where one day I can see y'all again. Perhaps a pack of Newports will get me there today. Even this cup of codeine can't heal the pain. I keep thinking of all the times we had, kicking it in class and yelling, fuck this shit. You were my big brother and now you've left me sad. I've become melancholy and now I'm stuck in a pit. You gave me limited happiness that turned into infinite sadness. Your memory lives on through my life as I strive. Without you, abuelita, my life has become madness. I can't give in because you always said I would thrive. This hurts like hell, but I'm relentless in my quest. You'll see me from above as I become the best. And that's it.
Thank you, Alberto. The biggest thing that I noticed, and, you know, send me the sonnet. Let's see what's up with the sonnet. Is, you know, the passion, and not just the passion in the words, but the passion in the voice. And one thing that I always try and pay attention to, at least, or listen or look for, is how does a poem read and what does it sound like? And not only what does it sound like, what does it sound like in my head, but what does it sound like coming out of you and your words? Because you give it the breaths where the breaths belong, and you give it the pauses and the spaces and the speed and the accents and the power and the strength where it needs it, where the poem required it. And so I really like that. And I like that you can do that. You know, some of us, sometimes I would read and I'm like, hello, this is my poem, you know, and it's very robotic and monotone, like the old DMV commercials, except worse somehow. And so thank you, Alberto. All right, this next speaker, who needs no introduction, however, will get one, is a very special guest, very special person in my life, and subsequently in all the lives of everybody, because without this person, I probably wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today. And in 2013, on July 26th, I presented my very first poem to the world on stage ever, in public or in private. I wrote it especially for that event. A year before that event happened, I told this individual, hell no. You think I'm going to go on stage and do what? That's not going to happen. A year later, I decided, and I asked, I said, hey, can I read a poem? And she said, are you serious? Do you remember what you said last year? And I was like, I know. And not only is it something that's special to me that I can introduce them today, that they introduced me then. And it was the moment in my life, as far as I'm concerned, that I decided or realized or was made clear that I can be somebody, that I had a voice worth sharing. And not only that, but a voice that is important enough for me to feel like I could share it with myself, and that I can speak with some kind of authority, some kind of passion, and some kind of love for my own words. And so, what is it? 8 years ago, and now today, I would like to introduce everybody with as much love and respect as humanly possible, Joan Garfield.
Thank you, Matthew. That's lovely of you. So I, unlike most of you, am a fiction writer. And so I brought a part of a story that I wrote that won an award. And it's part of a collection that I've written called The Resistance, which is all set historically, World War II France. Although the stories are historical, many of the incidents could be occurring now, including this one, where a child of 6 has been separated from her parents and for political reasons which she does not understand. And she and her grandfather and a neighbor have been put in jail because the grandfather and the neighbor are members of the resistance, the French resistance. And the girl inadvertently revealed some of their activities. So the section I was going to read, Matthew, is maybe 6-7 minutes. So if that's too long, just cut me. Okay? I'd love to see him do that. Okay. The room in the jail was small, and she had to share it with Madame Leon, who smelled of sweat and baby powder. There was nothing in it but 2 cot beds and a pail that she thought they were supposed to use for a toilet. At least it smelled that way. Through the iron bars across the hall, her grandfather sat in his own small room, an exact copy of theirs, but he was by himself. She didn't know why they were there, or why the men who brought them had been so mean, or why Madame Leon was so annoyed with her, but it had to do with what she had said. She shouldn't have told them about the parachute men. Her grandmother had told her not to mention them. They had been there for hours and hours. Through the tiny window near the ceiling of the room, she could see that it was starting to grow dark. Soon we'll go back to the market for your bicycle, she called across to her grandfather. He smiled sadly at her. She had to pee, but she didn't want to do it in front of Madame Leon and her grandfather, so she sat on one of the cuts to hold it in, and she lay her teddy bear gently down beside her. A proud soldier came into the hall and unlocked her grandfather's door. Now, finally, they'd be let out, thank goodness. But instead, the soldier held a gun up to her grandfather's chest and motioned for him to walk down the hallway. As he passed their room, her grandfather winked. When the men had gone out the door at the end of the hallway, Madame Leon lifted her skirt, pulled down her big white ballooned panties, and straddled the pail. Vivi heard the tinkling of pee. It made her need to go even more. Not even a shred of paper, Madame Leon complained. She stood up, holding her skirt as far from her body as she could, and shook herself to get the pee off. Vivi really, really had to go. She stood over the bucket the way Madame Leon had done, pulled up her skirt, tugged down her underpants. The pee came out of her quickly. She felt much better. She didn't know why people peed or animals, but everyone did, even squirrels, if you watched them for long enough. She shook herself so she wouldn't get the pee on her and pulled up her pants. Where did they take Grandpapa? She asked. Interrogation. Madame Leon's hands were shaking. What's interrogation? They'll ask him lots of questions. When will he come back? Madame Leon made a mean face at her. Who knows? Did your parents come back? She bit her lip. Sorry. Her parents, was that like this? Her father had been taken somewhere. Vivi wanted to visit him, but her grandparents said they couldn't. They thought he was in a camp and they didn't have the address. And her mother? She hardly remembered her mother, except for a warm, soft singing and rocking that she sometimes heard right before dreams. The photos her grandmother had of them weren't at all like what she remembered. Her mother's thick, black, shiny hair was curled in a long curl that looked like a sausage, and her father had a stiff smile that looked as if someone were pinching him. It was quiet in the jail. From far off, she could hear the sound of men's voices and an occasional snort of laughter. Steps came from down the hall. She jumped up and rushed to the iron grating. It was her grandfather moving slowly. Another man followed him, the soldier with the gun. Something had happened to one side of her grandfather's face. It was all red. When he tried to smile at her, teeth were missing. She felt sick in her tummy looking at him. His face must hurt. She knew how bad it felt to bleed. Her first tooth had come out in December and then 2 others, and it had hurt each time and been bloody. The fat man from the market was behind her grandfather. He spoke to the soldier. First the woman, then the girl. He went back through the door. The soldier locked her grandfather into his room and then came over to theirs. He unlocked their door and told Madame Leon, out. Madame Leon looked at her grandfather. I hardly know you, Grandpapa told her quickly in the local patois. He didn't want the soldier to understand. His words were muffled because of what had happened to his mouth, but Madame Leon and Vivi understood him. We were neighbors, cordial but distant. Madame Leon nodded. Why was he telling her to lie? The Leons and her grandparents had been friends for years, before she was born. He'd always told her not to lie. There must be something dangerous about neighbors knowing each other. Madame Leon walked out, followed by the soldier, his gun pointed at her back. Grandpapa, she called softly. He turned his head so she couldn't see the injured side. I'm all right, Vivi. I don't want to talk to that fat man, she told him. No. Suddenly her stomach rumbled. She had to do a caca. She couldn't stop. She rushed to the urine-smelly bucket and pulled down her undies. Poop spilled out of her, loose and smelly, and it splattered all over. She started to cry because her grandfather was right there, seeing her, and because some of it got on her leg. There was no paper, no sink, no water to wash it off. Vivi, her grandfather called softly. It's all right, don't worry. He spoke in patois, even though there was nobody else there. When they call you in, tell him that I was the only one out there that night with the parachuters. Remember, you didn't see anyone else besides me. You understand? She nodded and snuffled up the tears. Madame Leon was going to lie, and she was supposed to lie as well. They had to tell lies to get out of here. She wanted her grandfather to say something comforting, but he was silent. Do you think Grandmama will come for us? She can't leave the farm. It was true. Her grandmother didn't know how to drive. She felt like she had to go again. Madame Leon and the soldier came back. As the man unlocked the door, Vivi could see that Madame Leon's dress had been ripped on top. She held the 2 pieces of material together, but her bosoms showed. She had big bosoms that were white. Madame Leon was crying. She walked into the room and flopped down on one of the cots. So, her grandfather called. They can do anything they want, Madame Leon said in patois, but I was silent as a mouse. Her bosoms went up and down. It's all her fault. Adrian, her grandfather said. They were all in trouble because of what she'd said about this parachute man. It was her fault that her grandfather was bleeding and Madame Leon was crying, and the German would do bad things to her too. I'll never say it again, never, she whispered to her teddy bear. The soldier was standing at the door of their room. He sniffed and made a face at the smell coming from the bucket. He pointed a finger at her. You out now. I don't want to go, she explained to him. He pointed his gun. Out. Vivi, go with the man, her grandfather called. Clutching her bear, she counted the iron bars on the rooms as they passed. 1 100, 2 100, 2 3 100 to make time slow down. The soldier opened a door and nudged her forward. The room had a big desk. The fat man sat behind the desk smoking a real Jatan, which her grandfather said were hard to get these days. Shut the door, he told the soldier. When the soldier left and the door was shut, the fat man leaned back in his chair. He blew smoke rings toward her. Sit. He pointed her to a chair across the desk from him. The chair was too big for her, but she scrambled up on it and turned to face him. She hoped he couldn't smell the caca on her leg. Is the man out there your grandfather? Yes. And the woman is your neighbor? Yes. Do you remember a few weeks ago there was a full moon and 2 men dropped from an airplane with parachutes? Yes. Did they have a big box with them? She didn't know what her grandfather would want her to say, so she told the truth. I don't think so. The fat man sighed. Who helped your grandfather? He was by himself. There, her grandfather would be proud of her. The fat man reached into the desk. I have a candy here for you if you tell me the truth. He placed it in the middle of the desk. It was a marzipan wrapped in shiny red paper. You couldn't get those now, but she remembered them from a long time ago. They were good. She wanted the marzipan, but she was afraid of the man who was watching her carefully. Look, we know your grandfather had help. We just need to know who was there with him. If you answer that, you can have the candy. She shook her head. I didn't see anybody else. Where were you? In my room. Where's your room? Upstairs. How could you see what was going on? It was light from the moon. She wished he would stop asking her questions. Did you know your grandfather was going to meet those men? No. What time was it? Late. Why were you awake? The airplane noise woke me. Did you see the men come into the house? She hesitated. No. He yelled at her. Tell me the truth, damn it. Who was with your grandfather? No one. She started to cry. Her stomach turned over. I really, really need to use the toilet. She couldn't help it. Caca came out of her from her undies onto her skirt and some leaked onto the back of the chair. Jesus, Ernest, the fat man called. The soldier came in. Stinking goddamn peasants, get rid of her. Ernest stared at the fat man as if he wasn't sure what to do. Out, get her out of here. She held the back of her dress so that the caca was only in one place. She followed the soldier to the door, which led to a bigger room where a few soldiers in gray-green uniforms were sitting, smoking, and playing cards. Clinging to her teddy bear, she followed the one called Ernest towards the door leading to the street. Outside, her grandfather's friend Henri waited near the square. She ran to him. He hugged her. I'll take her home, he told the soldier. Henri had a small market cart with an old piebald horse. He lifted her into the hay piled up in the back of the cart and covered her with a woolen blanket. He didn't ask about her grandfather or Madame Leon. He didn't say anything about the smell. Rest, he said.
Thank you. And, just watching, I'm just, for me, it's personal that I get to introduce you and listen to you speak. And so that was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you could be here more often.
Thank you for having me and for the lovely introduction. And I can see from this what a good teacher you make.
I hope so. All right. Thank you again. Okay. Our next speaker is also another success in that I have no idea who this person is. I do now. And hopefully, as in Girlfield, you said in one, I know one quote was cordial but distant. Opposite of that, we're all going to be disrespectful. We're going to hate each other, but be best friends and super close forever. And so everybody across the YouTube verse and Zoom country, Zoom, experience, Judy.
Hi, my name is Judy, and I'm going to read two poems for you. The first poem is called Ode to a Tree, and the story behind this is my dad was quite old, and he was in and out of dementia. And I was walking down the street one day, and I saw this beautiful tree that had just split, and one part of it was hanging, the other part was alive, and you could see the heartwood in between. And it just made me think of my dad. So I wrote this poem called Ode to a Tree for my father. The tree was a constant presence for as long as I can remember. So much part of my life, though I barely noticed it back then. Its branches reached out to shelter, reassure, protect. I saw it survive stunning storms, and silently it taught me strength, endurance. Frightened, sad, or lonely, I sat in the cool, calm shelter of its shadow, and it comforted me and others. All left it behind. When time came for me to leave, without a thought, I did, secure in the knowledge the tree would be there as always. Was it a sudden lightning strike, or simply the ravages of time that one day split it down the center, revealing its broken heart? And yet it stood, severed in two, half broken and shriveled, half alive and strong, but lost and out of place in an unfamiliar forest. Might I have saved it had I stayed? Now it withers day by day, and I'm powerless to return the gifts it gave, too late realized. What will my world be without this tree, its silent wisdom? One day, I pray I may be honored in memory as the enduring tree of someone's childhood. And my next poem is definitely lighter, and it's called Winter Woods. I ran one day through winter woods. Dry leaves covered the ground, crackling beneath my running shoes. I heard no other sound. Shards of sunlight pierced the trees like golden arrows from Cupid's bow. And on a verdant hill ahead, the trees appeared to glow. On that far hill, awash with light, a silhouette took shape of a man in perfect archer's stance. I watched, my mouth agape. I ran to the hill, climbed to the top, so curious was I. And there he stood, a half-clad man, a banquet to my eye. A light around his presence glowed, though mortal he appeared to be. His movements caused the wind to sing, and I trembled as he looked at me. Now I'd no Cupid anywhere, but no winged cherub did I see, and this perfect sculpted godlike man couldn't possibly be he. So stunned was I, no words came forth. My mouth felt filled with sand. Struck dumb, I lowered my eyes to find a sunbeam in my hand. He plucked the sunbeam from my hand, and with no malice I could see, he threaded it in his twisted bow, and then aimed it straight at me. With eyes tight closed, I stood tall and proud like St. Joan at the stake, and told myself, if this is a dream, now's the time to wake. And wake I did to chilling wind, leaves swirling all around. No man, no Cupid, no golden glow, only me upon the ground. Darkness had begun to fall. Where the time went, I don't know. I looked around, and against a tree, I saw the twisted bow. Cautiously, I picked it up and held it close to me. The chill wind stopped, the air grew still, and a warmth washed over me. Some months have passed since that day, but I notice more and more real beauty in the simplest things I hadn't seen before. I believe in this frenetic world, there's still more love than hate. And I hope it's true that good things come to those of us who wait. Now, this tale won't be believed by some, though every word is so. For in my dreams, there is no end to the places I can go. Still, I run each day in those winter woods, looking for that man and chasing sunbeams with a child's hope to hold one in my hand.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
You know, there's so much power, I think, in trees and in the sturdiness that they represent, the strength. And then also it reminds me of so many people in our lives that we look back on and we're like, holy shit. They were strong. They were protective. They weathered season after season, heartbreak after heartbreak, trauma after trauma. And they still stood there and let us cry and complain. And then it's our turn. What kind of tree am I? What kind of tree are you? And I certainly believe that good things come to us who wait. And also good things come to us who don't wait. No, I'm just kidding. As long as it's not theft or anything illegal. I'm looking at all these people in this room. They're all very inconspicuous over here. Or very conspicuous as it is. All right, let's see. Thank you again, Judy. Thank you so much. Keep joining us. You know, bring all your people. Let's grow our communities and join one another as we come together and really heal and unify and prove that art does that. Art breaks down barriers. Art destroys what hurts us and builds up what heals us. And I think today and throughout the rest of Nervous Ghost Press's lifetime anyways, I hope that we always continue to illustrate that. So Joan, Judy, sorry, 2 J's back to back. Thank you very, very, very much. All right, our next speaker is Dwayne.
Hey, Matthew, thank you so much for having this and for inviting me to be along. I'm always really excited to do and read with Nervous Ghost Press. My name is Dwayne. I am a fantasy science fiction writer. I write prose. That's why I was so excited to hear Joan read. I was like, yeah, another prose person. Oh yeah. So I want to read from this new piece that I've been working on. I've entitled it Somebody. That's the title, and it's about a Black woman vampire. I have been really kind of reliving some of my early, not too early, but earlier teens and watching a lot of Buffy. And so I thought, well, you know what, let me go ahead and write my own little vampire narrative myself. So I'm going to read about maybe the first 4 pages of it in the interest of time. Kari stood at the entrance of the door. It was nighttime and the stars were gleaming, and she happened to have caught all that light on her shimmering dark skin from stars that may have exploded long ago. Now, she had not been invited in, so she couldn't walk inside, but she also didn't want to. At least that's what she told herself. She tapped her fingers in the doorframe, flirting with every vampire's curse. "Boys," she shouted down the doorway. Kari was beginning to become impatient. But she didn't know why. I mean, impatience was a human thing, something that those bound by the chronology of time must suffer. But Kari, she'd been alive well over 100 years. If she was going to be patient about anything, it'd be her own death. So she stepped back a little, ready to make light of a human thing as she'd done so many times before. The wind swept her long natural hair up into the wind, which was something because she'd been growing her hair for the last 50 years. So it was a strong wind to get the cloudy hair on her back to trail like it was doing. "Kari," she could hear one of the 3 boys who had went into the house. She told them it was a mistake to go in there without her, that they should have invited her in, that she was their best bet for survival if something fucked up was down those stairs. And she'd been half joking. "Kari," The voice was coming closer to her, and she could finally discern who the voice was coming from. It was coming from Frank, the youngest of the boys who had gone in, and the first one to come barreling out. Frank looked at her with a wideness in his eyes that she had never seen. And even though he tried to make sound come out of his throat, it just stood in there, all jumbled up, as if even his words were scared of the dark. Kari bent down, her cat-like eyes glowing in the dark. "Come, child." She grabbed him by the wrist, picked him up into his arms, held him fast, and jumped over the fence and into the back alley, where the moon still shone down on her like a spotlight. Kari put the ailing boy near the wall and stood almost above him because the alley was so narrow. "Now what happened, young one?" Kari's tone filled to the brim with compassion and concern. "Somebody," the words came chattering out of his teeth. "Somebody," he chattered again as he continued rocking back and forth, his knees huddled up close to his chest. Somebody," Frank stuttered. Now, this didn't sit right with the old black vampire Kari, who had never made friends with humans ever since he was first turned. And now the ones he'd been keeping an eye on were all upset, 2 of them still missing in that dark basement. And though Frank was young, for a human, maybe he wasn't, as he'd made 29 trips around the sun, and maybe he would make it to his 30th if he could get over whatever he'd seen in that basement on 3rd Street. But somehow, Kari doubted that he'd be able to do so, what with the way his face was so twisted by fear. She left him in that alleyway. It was her best bet as to not agitate him, but still keep him close. Then she went back over the fence. She waited until dawn, but the rest of her boys never came out. When she went back into the narrow alleyway before the first rays of sun, Frank was gone. Now, time moves differently for vampires than it does for humans. Back when Kari first met the boys, they were even younger, but full of spirit and grit. The boys had a bad habit of taking things that didn't belong to them, but they were really just mystery busters, fact checkers. And besides that, what did it ever mean to Kari, who had fallen in love with these 3 bumbling boys as if they were her own? "So, you're really a vampire?" Kari remembered Robert asking when they first met. His low-cut hair swam in these deep waves, and his lighter skin flushed underneath his manila tone. He took out a cigarette. "Now, haven't you heard those things are bad for you?" Then Kari swiped the box of cigarettes from his hand quicker than lightning, lighting one up and throwing him back the pack. And Robert was in awe. "Wait, when did you grab a cigarette?" Robert looked back down at his box. "And we've been told you that she was a vampire." That was Little Bit. He was the shortest amongst the group and the one with the most weight. Little Bit pushed Robert hard with the elbow of his right arm, making Robert stumble a bit forward. Kari loved these boys. "Just like I said, I met her last night in the woods while I was checking out a mystery," Frank spoke up. "Now, I told y'all it's true about the woods downtown. There's all kinds of secrets in there. Kari is just probably the most beautiful secret that forest could keep." Frank looked around at his 2 best friends. "And now she promised to help us solve all the mysteries downtown, the same ones we heard of growing up." Frank's face was determined, a small smirk relaxing on the corner of his lips, a confidence blazing from his aura. Those boys had always been like that, so impressed by her mystique, so in awe of her being and presence. She felt like something around them, which was a sweeter feeling than she could ever remember experiencing, especially after so many years of feeling invisible, wandering the world and eventually finding herself in that forest downtown, eating whatever small animals came down her path. It was fortunate that Frank didn't get eaten. That cross around his neck was a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Even though in the very beginning you said it was prose, and then you and Joan had this connection as prose people, I think it was still poetry, Dwayne, and you're one of us. And you don't get to be over there with them prose folk. And the biggest line, it was right in the beginning, really caught me, was patient about her own death. And if that's not a poem all by itself, and if you don't write it, I'm going to. and I'm not going to credit you. And I'll throw it in your face every chance I get for the rest of our lives. And, you know, if everybody out there, if you can see in our chat box here, everybody is about vampires in a really cool way. Yes, vampires. I'm not going to read the rest of them. But thank you, Dwayne. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to see you. And I'm glad that you're able to share in all of this with all of us. All right. Up next, we have one of my friends. So I'm calling you out now as one of my friends. So unfortunately, whether you are or not, the world will think you are. So you got to be nice. All right. Giovanni.
We're definitely friends, Matthew. I'm going to pick up what you're putting down.
Perfect.
It's official. Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everyone who's reading. I love being here with y'all. This is so fun. So as Matthew mentioned, we're friends. We both teach at East LA College. I'm in Los Angeles. I like writing everything, but I think I like writing poetry the most. So I'm going to read some poetry tonight. I'm just going to put my contact info in here now because I know I'm going to forget to later. So I have a website. It's myname.com. And there's some other work. There's some works there, writings there, info. I'm going to read from some poems I've been working on lately. The working title of them have been kind of on a writing kick, writing about using poetry to think about heroism, and especially like supernatural heroism. And that's just where my head's at right now. I'm very inspired by the pulpy 3-panel newspaper comic. So these are almost like episodic, episodic in that way, episodic sort of poems following a character that this character's name is Swallow. So it's like persona poems by this hero named Swallow. I will just get started here. Okay. All right. I'm going to put a timer because I like to know what's going on. All right. Our hero Swallow assembled. Our hero Swallow is select. Our hero Swallow is a choking hazard. Our hero Swallow is a quick childhood meal made for coping. Our hero Swallow is not for children who will tear him open. Our hero Swallow is adored for his inflammatory wit. Our hero Swallow's civil war is a boy's dollhood in a pit of wishes. Our hero Swallow is exclusively distributed. Our hero Swallow is not to be played with. Our hero's clear-cut small parts fit. Our hero Swallow helps the average boy to see what is not there. Our hero Swallow is a raw material to sculpt. Our hero Swallow has swivel joints, plastic boots and leggings, a tunic, and dots for nipples. Our hero Swallow is getting ultrasonically sealed by high frequencies, pending patents. Our hero Swallow healed well around his aluminum bones. Our hero Swallow is detailed. Our hero Swallow's attachment issues are paranormal. Our hero Swallow will never fall apart and can never give up. Our hero Swallow's training involved being dropped on the ground and bumped around. Our hero Swallow is sleeping. Our hero Swallow's functioning bodily organs aren't bleeding. Our hero Swallow's doubling stunts and poses legendary. Our hero Swallow's troubling semi-autonomous scary gray matters. Our hero Swallow works well with auxiliary pieces. Our hero Swallow owes it to us. Our hero Swallow is ours. He will be assembled. So here's a day. That was an intro. Here's a day in the life. Our Hero Swallow, this is the title. Our Hero Swallow and the Win-Win Situation. Everything here is called a winner. Silvered words on a mountain skin found me spread through the sun's innards. Perfection's waste living like a twin to a lost place. Alien brood. A glitch in my ribs starts to spin. Altered indigo, a bad brood of starlight bevels the fair. Wet throngs of winners tag and bleach and fugue the market's pursed lips. Night sweat is burning thatch stalls to cycles where the drum of giving wets receiving. Spelling skin titles. Suicide does not exist here. The quivered certainty idles from a gulpy winner, lurking in murky victory. The world has no pain here. There is no ear for that song anywhere. A whirl of aphorisms floods the market. Suddenly, I am a wet world beater, burning with an orbit's eye for a counterpart to carve, acting supernatural, shortened metamorphically speaking. Oove of fire's driest winters reveals the mountain's cleavage and its nerves. But winters show me what I must steal. The glitch in my world is not bright. This jagged shadow peak must peel off a rotting border of lights. A single-eyed cyclone slows. They present me to a great mouth like veils carved long into night and day. It moves when we move and stills when we stop. This is a loser strayed from its universe, speaks my kin, knocking its lights out. Cut the moon. One less loser in the win-win. I'll stop there. I'll just do that one.
Thank you, Giovanni. You know, the idea of heroic poetry, that's really cool. I like it. I want to know what's next. What's next in the story? What's next in the universe with that one less loser? And I want to know who that loser. I want to be that. Am I that loser? Are you the loser?
I'm writing you into it. You're the next foe. It's happening.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Giovanni. And before we continue with our speakers, our scheduled speakers, we have a very unscripted, not planned, out of the blue and into the green speaker. And this is the Nervous Ghost Press editor-in-chief, who I will be introducing very quickly. And he's going to share some work and a little bit about himself or whatever he feels like. It's totally up to you, individual who will not be named until you are. And the Nervous Ghost Press editor-in-chief is someone that I've known for I think half my life, which is kind of a cool thing to say. It's a really weird thing to say. And pretty soon I probably won't like saying it anymore. But I've known him since we were young. We went to school together. We have had our ups and downs, our down and outs, our ins and arounds, and every other thing that you can think of. He's someone that I cherish as an artist, as a friend, as a person, and having him here with us today and here in the organization, someone that I trust in all aspects of words and visual arts, and just someone who really believes and who owns and who lives in the power of the arts, that expresses why we're here, what we're doing, and what we do it for. And so, Dennis, share a little bit about yourself if you want to. Share some work if you have it. We're happy to have you, and the virtual floor is yours.
So this is the first poetry reading I've gone that's like this on a screen. But I'm Dennis, and I'm sure I don't look like that blonde slingshot in the pocket kind of guy. And yes, I do tisk and despise when someone says, "Oh, Dennis the Menace." I prefer Dennis Quaid. I love The Parent Trap. But let's see. I was born in Livingston, New Jersey, moved to California in 97. Went to St. John Bosco High School with Matt Mejia, and the first thing he asked me was, You like Avenged Sevenfold. I never heard of Avenged Sevenfold at that time. And went to military school, graduated from public school, spent 7 years traveling the country on foot and on buses and roads. And Matt asked me to join the press, and I said, yeah, why not? And here I am in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I love it here. I love my redwoods. I love the turkeys eating my citrus plants every single day, and I'm contemplating to buy a shotgun, but I don't kill anything. So I have some old poetry and I have some new poetry for you. So raise your hand if you want old stuff first. Ah, shit. All right, fine. Here we go. You mind if I stand? Because I do better when I stand and walk around like I'm a hawk. All right. Here we go. Ah, there we go. So this is Anger is a Gas Station Exploding. Dying. It's what every Adam and Eve fears, so similar to a woman giving up her one-time only virginity to a son of man who won't love her forever. Because once that is gone and absent, there is no turning back. There is no get out of jail free card. There are no Simpson lawyers who can sue and sue to get it back. There is no Daddy Warbucks like the film says, and there's no Rockefeller willing to buy it back. There are no refunds. There is no coin at the end of the telephone. There is the murdered, the dead, the blamed, the marked, the famed. And the remains are stacked in cherry plastic Salvation Army bins, ticketed and priced. And those pawn shop values are up to the bidder. And these women, lovely and so lonely, take the only way out. Hollywood walk of shame with billboards laughing and all televisions tuned in on you, with corsages in flames, with stomachs full of paper clips and needles, with painful anamnesis on replay. And in the alley light, exposed, gripping parking lot brick, skirt to her knees, panties tucked, milky bottom, back turned, sweat confessing, anger is a gas station exploding. I breathe in San Francisco, where every day is Chicago, sitting on a Rocky Mountain spine of stairs down Montgomery, and the oil company of flies flocking to the dead, soon to be dead. And the old with the drooling cigar mouths don't seem to notice death's dry coughing. And cancer within ourselves disturbs the egg timer of time, of when we all have to leave, when we all have to abandon ship, and when all we have is soon to be new. When we all have to depart someday from places we belong, from the Pangea we were separated from. Why must we live not knowing what's on the other side? But a rabied old yeller destroyer of worlds. Anger is a gas station exploding. A father is not liquor deformed by dipsomania. A father is not violence, and a father is not practitioner of lust, greed, envy, and pride. And a father is not one expecting a thank you note for giving you life. And a father is not one to bet all your money, hopes, wishes, dreams on. They are all men trying to be the men before them, which none are. And they're all driven mad by the Mr. Hyde stirred in their vodka 7, scotch on the sea rocks, martinis, stingers, Bloody Marys, anchor steams, Irish car bombs, kamikazes, rusty nails. My Procrustean God slaving away at this stone monument is not my own, but he builds it in his own name. And he says this to you, to all, to me, and anybody after who I won't see. I don't worship drinks, I worship their abilities. And below a spray-painted bottom inscription, done by tag artists inspired by Zorro, resemble Mr. Hyde as much as you like. It is you who must live with yourself. And in graveyards, Dionysus will laugh at the angels caught in electrical fences. Anger is a gas station exploding. Youth wasted in the wet umbilical wallets of the young, saying shibboleths such as, mine is as long as the boat ride from Cuba to Miami. Get your measuring tape, this is gonna be a big one. I'm gonna Hasselhoff all over you if you dig it. And in voyeur conversation, Moni, I like my pussy and I like it medium rare. Oh, come on, baby, show me them World Cups. I love my coffee black, my liquor straight, and my women naked as Lady Godiva. And these words are all words from a one man you can crush with your fingers like an ant if you so choose to do so. And the summer of love will one day finally accept is over. Packed up, shipped off, and married, kids, soon to retire, 401k. And we think of the honeymoon that's always been over. Anger awakens. Anger is a gas station exploding. Money, misery, addictions, prayer, love, art will be useless. But remember, art is our artillery, and anger is a gas station exploding. And a great wall of Chinatown is unraveling in front of us, and the glassy eye of Sammy Davis Jr. watches our movie script ending unfold with our gods dying the same as us. In petty penny premonitions and rebel rosaries, Sammy speaks into the Van Gogh deaf ear, staring into the Ford assembled headlights of the yen in all capital letters at the end. Living and dying are relatives, same blood, same family, same country. Waiting for death by living is all we ever do, all I ever did. Holding on for a last minute reprieve for a son of God to intervene. That's one. Well, thank you. That's like 9 years old, but it's something. So I wrote this one drunk and I wrote this one sober. Which one you want? Drunk, sober? All right, drunk. Here we go. This is live from a Douglas fir. I'll wait until the siren finishes her song and inches towards the microphone, that blasphemous altar harnessing the echo embedded in the esophagus. Chemtrail speech, I pick out letters like in a soup. Catch a Corvette trailblazing in a AAA commercial, mowed down a cartoon heart to shreds. And a suburban neighbor and lawnmower, arm to arm, laughs. Leaking gasoline into the gutter, the rain tears, made to die as dumbfounded stars. Whatever I am takes the elliptical escape. Harsh words bundled in a fine twine, burnt to a smoke we choke, a bike chain to a badge, from a family tree. The diamond refuses the gold circle and replaces itself willingly. With sweat from the back of a man who stutters when he tells a lie. He stole from somebody else, and it humps as if it's the end of the road. The body in the sarcophagus lies chilled in the refrigerator. From womb to a shell, from a child discovering the ocean for themselves, to the ear who listens outside of English, and the oil spill sauntering a halo to a closed eyelid, shuddering as the last flower plucked rests in the breast pocket. The muse rises from her seat, falls amidst to die a crest, no different than a company logo magnified to names belonging to bodies we never meet. Breadcrumbs, the geese who sweep the ashes from under our feet. I ask you to blow the dice and take what's coming for me. I have to go. I have to wake up early tomorrow. The 61st second can only last as long as peppermint to a cuff. And potpourri is better because it lives as it dies. Tell me something that lives as it dies, something more infinite than train tracks or yellow cut lines on a freeway, or all you can eat at buffets, or empty promises that give souls to the coats in your closets, from hotels to the trunks in the attics, and receipts that thought their lives would be different. And dream of being letters or folded envelopes carrying something greater than themselves. I see them no different than hearts missing the blood of ours, swimming in transfusion that births fish from an out-of-state aquarium, and the Statue of Liberty falls with it, burning a torch no water can defeat. And you stand at the finish line and everything is in rewind, where I run in the opposite direction of a closing book, born a wave. We lost count of missing children on milk cartons that nobody has told the parents. The world has turned to plastic, and the 5 cents we withdraw in the future is not enough to receive a hello through the walls. I have one more, but thank you. I have one more, and the story behind this one, I drove to LA from Santa Cruz Mountains, and I drove back to LA, and I just wrote down what I saw. So this is called 3 Dead Hawks Waving on the 5 Freeway. Fog breath, wet bus bench, same boy as yesterday, staring through me to the places I came from. Rear view mirror, redwoods atomizing. I see the sea reaching from a foamy shore, grasping nothingness. My shadows on gas stations, bar stools, liquor wonder walls. My eyes cut them out like a bread knife. Crumbles, the crows dig, peck, scavengance. Early light, the workers in the fields, picking the colors from the green. Dirty hands made of blue. There's a story in the Victorian house I am passing, held up by pallets and pallets, and I swear I saw all the tiny men holding the nails together in their teeth. A young Mexican kid, scruffy, clean, happy, taking his date to a Burger King where I imagined them seated in a booth trying to think of something to say. And everything comes out wrong, but everything is all right. Vacant fruit stands falling to splinters. A spaghetti squash makes a run for it, stopping in the middle, missing the blindfold, and some model car will be executioner, but not me. Casa de Fruta that I like to call Casa de Puta. Cashier anxious for the clocks to make a disappearing act. Is that all for you today? And the moment repeats itself in the mechanical arms making taffy. Another stand decorated with hand-painted signs. Local walnuts and almonds. Try our wildflower honey, and I laugh. Honey is made from the lips of a woman I used to know. And there's a good reason nobody has ever found El Dorado. On my tail, a stranger in black sunglasses that speaks interrogation in space flags me down. Points to my right side, my gas cap hanging by a thread. So I pull over, exiting through the passenger side. Twist the cap shut, the workhorses of steel trucks burning diesel, the bumper sticker renegades speaking from their bumper car asses. I've seen it all. The butcher is coming close. First the smell of the earth, then the manure. Then you see sprawling acres of cattle on their knees, and I wonder if the grass is being chewed in their mouths are laced with amnesia as death passes by in a white hearse. For a decade, I've passed the Cat in the Hat painted water tower, my personal landmark for the point of no return. It's LA or bust. Taking a moment for myself, I watch the rows of crucified grapevines tied down with old ER patient wristbands. Multiply. To my right, a Jesus in You sign made like a line of white laundry. Spotted in dove shit. Fort Tejon all covered in snow. Old man Winter must still be here, running naked in the snow and frolicking with that damn windsock of his. Gorman, a small town with the name of a boy everybody went to school with and nobody wants to remember. I wonder who you are now. The irony, the Smokey the Bear Road in the state that killed off all its bears and memorialized the population to a single one that died in a Golden State Park that nobody tells you these days. The murky waters of Pyramid Lake shrieking like a once proud man promoted to a senior discount too reluctant to use. 100 Grand Canyons can't feel what I feel now. Unseen car crash 2 exits away from Castaic, and I feel something pulling my shirt to turn back. A black Camaro right off the factory line trying to soldier on to the mobile station with a flat tire that'll never heal. Magic Mountain, an abandoned Playboy club, home to the residents of empty rolling soda caps. Made drifters and used napkins like ghosts huddled in a photo booth waiting to say cheese with no mouths. Beginning to feel my bones come out of my skin, trucker to the student driver, get the fuck out of my way. The asphalt suddenly animated by the tumbling styrofoam made like pieces of snow. Chocolate Labrador in the passenger seat of a station wagon Volvo licking his boy's face. You're gonna be a good man someday, I promise. In Gilroy, white cranes like the ones you see at Japanese restaurants drink from the flooded banks and catapult themselves to a shimmer in the mercury shine in the water. Everybody in the business of selling flowers slowly withering in paint buckets. Watsonville made out to be a villain. Good people in secondhand Corollas and tiny American flags flying from the driver's side window. Aptos, my favorite resident, a homeless man speaking sign language to a setting sun. An elderly couple passes in a BMW coupe they bought together and dangle their fingers outside the sunroof. I come into my room, kick my typewriter awake from its hibernation. I have something to tell you, but you're not going to believe me. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Dennis. You know, I got 2 words. I wrote down a lot more words, but I only have 2 words that are, I think, appropriate here. That is hell yeah. And that is, everybody, the Nervous Ghost Press editor-in-chief, and I'm very grateful, very happy to have him. And we have a lot of projects we're working on. Stay tuned. We're gonna share those in the future on our website. Stay connected, of course. To learn about us, www.nervousghostpress.org. Also, that's where you will find Writing for Life, our first anthology. It's pretty good. If I do say so myself, I like it. And for all of you writers and non-writers and artists and non-artists and creative people and non-creative people and scientists and philosophers and thinkers and historians and dancers and whatever else and whoever else you are, get a journal. Share your thoughts with yourself. Have a communication with the only person who really matters and the only person that can look you in the eye and be honest above all else is you. And talk with yourself. Write with yourself. Use your pen and hands and paper and eyes and mouth and ears. And go beyond the scope of anything we've ever dreamed of or been. And without going too far off of the track here, Amanda.
I don't get a sweet introduction as your friend. I'm offended.
Never.
How will they know? How will they know we're friends? That's fine. It's fine now. It's fine. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, Matt. It doesn't hurt. It hurts a little bit. Anyway, so my name is Amanda Kors. I'm going to read one poem today. And if you like me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Amanda Kors. I think on Instagram it's all lowercase, and on Twitter it's capital Amanda and capital Kors. But I don't know. If you just look for it, it's worth it. Anyway, the title of this poem is "The height of my self-love comes between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. There is no color she loathes as much as beige. She's in a sports bra and sweatpants, swigging $2 chuck from the bottle. She is adorned, piercings and tattoos. Her spine is a bit crooked and her hips ache. She has resisted destiny, which tells her she should be violent and dead. She read her tarot cards this morning and they said you weren't worth her time. She types loud because every word is an incantation, a curse, from her fingertips to the written word, to the pseudo-Christian, patriarchal, racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, human-phobic system. She is the fine line between chaos and enthusiasm. She is worn off yellow wallpaper. She's scrying the bottom of her coffee mug. She cries when she's angry because the weight of the permission of fury is new and the gravity of feeling is turbulent. She never went to pilot school. Her mouth tastes like Eve's apple and she could spit the seeds out at a glass-shattering speed. The color pink intimidates her. Her bipolar is both a boundary to her peers and a container of empathy. She is mania in moderation. She keeps herself well out of spite. Her tattoos talk to each other. She has an entire bachelor's degree in English and a failed grammar course. She is a love letter to herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Never met you before in my life.
Yeah, God, who are you?
You know, one of the parts, and then, well, two parts, the tattoos that speak to each other, I think it was, yeah, you know, they speak to each other and then they're connected through our bones and our skin and everything else. And that was a really cool way to put it. And then also types loud. You know, I think we type loud, we write heavy, and all this other stuff, because it's not just words. Once it's on here, it's something different. And it's no longer just whatever was living around in our chest and our legs and our arms, and we put it into on paper. We can crumple it up, burn it, but it carries and it has its own voice. And every time you read something, I can hear it. Not just, I could hear the paper you're reading off of, not just your voice. But thank you, Amanda. And thank you for supporting and being part of the community. And I think it's something that's really, really positive, and I'm grateful for it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So now our final speaker, I think, yes. I'll make sure no one's looking at me like I forgot you over here. Our final speaker, who is all the way on the East Coast, which is really cool. Someone that I met today. I'm very excited, joining our community, building up like we always say. And so, Frankie, share a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and then it's all yours.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? I'm Frankie A. Soto. You can find me on Instagram, Frankie Soto Poetry. My website's frankiesotopoetry.com. Representing New York. I'm going to read two pieces because Alberto actually inspired me. My abuelita is in early stages of Alzheimer's, and I saw her last week. And hearing his poem, which is a great thing about poetry, is that you can get inspired within a set, within an open mic, just from hearing others. And going last allows me the opportunity to just take in everyone's energy. So this poem I was featuring at a high school, and I was doing a workshop with the ESL class. So I have a lot of students from different countries, and I was able to get someone to read, a 17-year-old boy to read a poem. He's from El Salvador, and it inspired me to write this piece. This is called What the Banger Said to the Ghost. Lately, this machete has me missing sharpening a pencil with the same cuchillo green plantains are peeled with. The immigrant involuntary surfaces without notice. I have no outfit that can disguise this accent. The only books I will read are the Bibles that were read at your service, where God wasn't fast enough to shield your limbs from the hacks that left your casket closed. I have stood over bloodied bodies, seeking refuge, hoping this kill will be a permission slip to be absent, that this murder would be a severance package of safety. There are promotions given for decimating the flesh of a rival with such ferocity, my mother doesn't recognize my voice anymore. Says my hands feel like a Diablo's toolbox. I can't tell her as long as I'm gifting souvenirs with the tongues of enemies, I'm keeping hers intact and safe. I thought if we ran fast enough, the monsters of our country would find boredom in the chase. Today, I have bought myself time with a pulse. I have saved my bones from being a junkyard of parts to rummage for identity. I have made you an offering, a head toppling over Mayan stairs to return to the sun. You are a son I could never return from ghosts. Homie, I can never tell you it wasn't personal. I can never tell you I am just flesh waiting for the blade of a jagged machete to call me vengeance. A frame amongst flowers and prayer beads where mommy's sob makes the whole room shake. I will soon join you in a place where I don't have to run from my accent, finally free of the monsters that chased her from her country and the one that she didn't know was growing in her home. That is the first piece. And I was able to get this student to bravely share a lot of real facts with me. So since I'm finally meeting everyone here for the first time, I kind of wanted to keep that bravery of sharing a piece that I don't really get a chance to share much. So this is called Lost and Found. E. Frankie. Words abuela never forgets to roll off her tongue. Thoughts are muddled in a hazy fog. My mother visits. My sister FaceTimes. I send a picture of my son to her phone and E. Frankie returns. A reminder I am still pulling the beaded rope that hangs on the entryway to her kitchen. She is still 2 steps behind with a chancleta in her right hand, armed and steady. She's told it's my birthday. And E. Frankie returns. It's now the story she tells about losing me in the retail store on 167th Street, how I fell asleep under a round clothing rack and she clamps her heart. Ay, Dios mío, as if she still can't find me. Each detail as fresh as a café she offers when I visit. She giggles when she remembers the spanking I received. And the only hurt left in the room is wondering if she'll remember E. Frankie next year. Will I be the flesh she's held all my life, or just a ghost in her memory? For now, I grab her like she was a child, sleeping under those hangers, hanging on to the hope that she'll always be able to find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. And I think the biggest kind of takeaway in all of this is that bravery, is that we can inspire each other, and you inspired and you were inspired by one another. And, you know, heading into our Q&A, that is pretty much exactly why we're here, is that we can share bits and pieces of ourselves that relate to everybody else, whether we have it in a very explicit and tangible way, or it's something that we've never experienced in real life. But hey, I've been sad before, you know, and I've been angry, and we can use this shared, like I said in the beginning, our shared passion, our shared compassion, trauma, and everything else, and come together and become stronger than we were at 6 o'clock. Or maybe with an idea that maybe we can be after we end. And so thank you, Frankie. We have a lot of questions for everybody. And just a heads up, I am now changing our view here from a single person to everybody. So just make sure whatever's in your camera frame is what you want to be seen. And we will begin our Q&A for a while. This is my favorite part. Mine is hearing everybody. You get to see everybody. You know, it's so cool. One of the questions that was in YouTube a little while ago was about a connection with the audience. And this could be for anyone who wants to share, who wants to respond, is think about before or when you approach the page, and how do you, or do you have a connection with your reader, a connection with your audience? How do you build one? Do you build one? Is it something you think about? And then now, as we're here and the only audience that you have is that dot on your computer, or that area on your computer you're supposed to look at. But if I'm looking here, now I have your eye contact. Oh wait, but it's supposed to be up here, and it changes us. And so what do you do these days as far as Zoom and virtual events to try and keep that connection with those who listen, with those who see you, and with those who feel you? So anybody can hop on at any time, and I'm going to mute myself now.
I don't mind sharing if that's all right. So I get to have a really, fantastic opportunity. I get to do a lot of, college features and high school features, and Zoom has been a little different from standing on stage or running workshops or being in theaters. You lose that intimacy and interaction. And what I always get the most out of after a performance is speaking to the students afterwards and hearing real life stories. So when I do my Zoom features, I have everyone take their mics off mute after every performance and be loud and be rowdy and be cheerful, and not as much dialogue because you got to keep the show running, but I allow everyone to express themselves as much as they want, get all the energy out, because as a performer, if you're doing, say, a 30-40-minute set and you have that dead silence of Zoom, it can kind of throw you off, that you don't know the momentum of each piece, where it's going, or people catching it. So growing up in a Puerto Rican household, we are loud and feisty. So I like to keep my shows the same way. I like everyone to be authentic, be loud, share what they're feeling after each piece, and then we just keep it going. That's just my personal little thing I do to keep Zoom to feel as if we're in a living room or somewhere intimate.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if, for those who are teachers and you ask a question to all these boxes on the screen and you're sitting there like, are you there? You make some stupid joke you think is super funny and no one laughs at it. It's like, dang, all right. I didn't think I was making dad jokes yet. All right, keep the conversation going.
I think too that when you're on Zoom, it's really important to pay attention to your diction, because everybody's microphone is different and everybody's speaker is different. And if you don't pay attention to how you sound, you swallow your words and stuff, people are going to stop listening.
Yeah, something I think is also important when you're reading, and even if you're just on Zoom, just talking to somebody, hand gestures, because that's something that you do see when you're talking to somebody in real life. But I also think that, someone's watching you talk, it kind of helps keep them looking at you, but also because it helps convey more expression and meaning, because a lot of communication is nonverbal and is in gesture and how you hold yourself and your body. So throw in a hand gesture helps.
And if you're reading, look up from the page every now and then.
Yeah.
Or if you're reading from your screen, move your eyes, so that you're not just staring straight ahead.
Great point.
So I think what I usually do is, like going off what Professor said, is I like to keep it real with my poetry and whatever I read, because it's like what I write is what happened to me or stuff that happened to me or others. And I like using that breath, because I remember Tupac would always emphasize in his music that he wanted the breaths in the songs. He wanted it to be authentic. So I kind of copy that as well. And to keep it, like, I guess, get everyone's attention, because I'm a musician and I've been inspired by like Kurt Cobain, Diamond Dave from Eddie Van Halen, and and I like that performance. And I don't know, I just try to get, walking around, but I should have walked around this time around, but anyway, like, yeah, that's what I usually do. I just kind of be myself, and that's about it.
Something I've noticed, at least in a transition from in person to here, is in person, I would always look up or into the back corners at my feet. You have a podium sometimes that can save you and act as a little bit of a shield. And then you would look down, start from up here and kind of work your way to foreheads, maybe someone on that side of the room and the other side of the room, and you can do all of these things. But now, when the camera is right in front of your face, everywhere you look, people know. They can see it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I did it again. And then when you watch it afterwards, if the recording mirrored your face, well, I'm used to seeing my nose, go this way, and now it's going the other way, and it freaks me out. But I think as far as connection and what a lot of us and what I've seen today is we're all connected because we are. It's just as simple as that. And just hearing the words connects us, and we can feel it through the camera, and we can feel it through the airwaves, and we can feel it through our faces, and we furrow our brow, or when we do something else, or wherever our hands are, or if they aren't, and where we're looking, we can still get that sense of kind of nervousness and excitement and, oh my gosh, are they looking at me? I see this guy over here. You can't tell who I'm looking at, which is kind of creepy as far as the age of technology goes. but we're still, and I, connected because I feel connected by all of you, even though some of you I've never met before in my life. And in our emails, they're just dry emails with, hey, I think you told me a joke in this email, so I'm going to respond as if it were. I don't know. I don't have my crystal ball at the ready, and maybe you'll remember which one of you that is. I thought that was really cool. But, even still, I think the power of words when we don't have the rest of our bodies to communicate, our legs, our feet, our shoulders, our elbows, our hips, and all of those parts that give us clues and hints about where we are and what we feel like, our words are beginning to carry as much weight as we give them. And those who listen to us get to carry that weight with us. And so I do have another question for everyone. And that is regarding kind of, because I know Joan and Dwayne are prose people, and so when you have, let's say, a go-to genre or a go-to style, maybe it's acrylics or oils or whatever it is, when you have a go-to one, what happens to you when you do the other one? I don't want to ask any kind of leading questions here, but if you were to write a poem, let's say, where does your brain go?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start answering this question unless you, Joan, have something to say.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I think for me, whenever I'm writing prose, it's always just a string of connections that I'm trying to place within the story that kind of evokes the emotion that I'm trying to portray in the story. But when it comes to poetry, it's definitely kind of a different feeling. Like when I started writing, it was really through poetry. And that was how I was able to kind of speak about like emotions that I just couldn't talk about, like in conversation or anything like that. And so poetry has always served as this kind of like emotional outlet for me, where even now, like when I'm doing poetry, it's really funny because like my poetry has, I think, evolved into kind of like sounding a little prosy. And so it's been like an interesting like relationship that I've had with poetry as well. But I think they kind of come from the same kind of vein of creativity inside of me, but they kind of like poetry goes there and then prose goes that way. So kind of along those lines.
I agree, Dwayne. I think I have the same sort of thing where I have done both and I love doing both, but I lean towards prose, and I'm always wanting to tell a story.
Definitely. And, at least when I write, if I wrote a few short stories and they just they're like long poems because it's a bunch of, I don't know, flowery language, I guess. I'm not describing things the way they should be described. It's not just a cup. It's like a special cup. You know what I mean? I think you get it. Anyway, I have
the only cup.
Exactly. I have another question that is for nobody particular, but how do you feel sharing work with complete strangers?
I love it. I find it easier to share with strangers than with people that I know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, Judy. I'm like that too. I like it when like there's just a room full of people who I may not know. And I love like, even if people are there that I do know, I love it because, they often will be like, yeah, go, so I like that too. But, I like to just be it feels freer when, you're kind of like not chained by like by knowing someone. And I don't think that that's like a heavy chain. It depends on who you're talking about or that, but, there's like, there's something there. So with somebody you don't know, it's like there's there's not that same connection and you can just kind of like be in a different way. So I enjoy that too.
Well, this was the first time I ever did an open mic, and I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't really know what it was. And I must say, I'm very favorably impressed by everybody's work. I mean, just the caliber of the work is pretty darn amazing, I thought.
I find it easier to share with strangers because most of my poems are about people in my life and maybe they don't want to hear it. But unless they're cool with it, then it's fine. But if it's one that's not shining so favorably on them, usually easier to share with strangers.
The other thing is you get new fans,
Yeah.
when you share with strangers.
Yeah, it's definitely,
which is always a bonus,
yeah, definitely easier to share with strangers. I like the reactions too, you're like,
Right.
you get a different point of view than your own, even from your own work. So
Yeah, I think it's weird because we use strangers so loosely. Like, I can only speak from my experience, but by the time I went on, I had heard so many personal confessions and truths of everyone's lives that it doesn't feel like I'm speaking to strangers by the time I go. So it's weird. Most strangers, you have like a glancing hello, a goodbye. You don't hear 5 to 10 minutes of like their most inner, most vulnerable thoughts. So it's different. I think stranger, you have to use it loosely because you're getting to learn somebody on a whole different scale. So by the time I went on, I felt like I knew a lot of you way better than I would know people that I knew at work for 3-4 months. It's different. The encounters are different when you're at an open mic or a poetry set.
I think it redefines stranger, because stranger connotation is like, stranger danger. Like, I don't know, that's right. But in this case, it's like strange is beautiful. Like strange is what I am too, right?
And
Or
stranger than you.
yeah.
Like the song from The Doors, People Are Strange. But I think for me, like, I don't know, because I put a lot of personal stuff in it, but I kind of use this personal stuff to help others as well. I try to use my writing to, people are struggling with some things that they've gone, like, crime stuff, they've been in trouble a lot, I try to help other people, like, you can get out of this, you can be better for yourself. And Joan and Dwayne, I love hearing your pieces because I myself am a prose writer. I didn't share some of my stuff today because I wasn't sure if I could share it because it's like really long. But anyway, the point is, like, I really love reading your guys' stories. And fun fact about me, I've been writing these novels since I was 8. Been creating these characters since I was 8. Wasn't very good in English, but now it's like 2 years ago I started really writing them. And just seeing your guys' stuff is really inspirational, I would say too. So keep at it. And I want to read that vampire one because one of my favorite heroes is Blade.
I'll have to keep you updated on that.
For sure.
Keep me updated too, because I'm all here. Vampires are not annoying to me. I want all of the vampire everything because I am still in 2008. Okay, fight me. But yeah, I agree with what Frankie was saying about, at the end of an open mic, it's kind of like none of us are strangers to each other, because especially like when I'm reading my stuff, like all of it is, autobiography. You get all the details on like my mental illness and like my sex life. So you know me pretty well by the end of any of my poems. So it's like, no, you know me probably better after I read my poetry than people who have known me for years, really. So that's what's kind of cool about these events. And also afterwards, a lot of us stay in contact with each other, like in the little chat of the Zoom box, we're dropping all of our like social media handles and stuff. So, and I've stayed in contact with people after these events, and we check in with each other and talk about what we're writing, and we're just like, yeah, like our gym selfies, good stuff. Looking at you, Frankie, on your story. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, part of that kind of familiarity with someone you've never met before is why these things are so important and why art is so important, because we're able to meet people who can or cannot change the trajectory of our lives. The same way that if I never met Joan Garfield, I wouldn't be here. And I'm going to put that pressure on you. So if I crash and burn one day, that's still your fault. But, you know, it's that we're not just artists who happen to be in the same boxes as one another today, but we can become friends, and then whatever is beyond friends, because we were artists in the same boxes on that day. And that's the important part and the power of it, and what it brings not only to our lives, but to others who could be inspired by watching Alberto read a poem or a story, or someone who is in Rachel's life who decides, well, holy shit, if Rachel can do it, I'm going to do it. Or, you know, hey, I'll let Giovan go today. Maybe I'll go on the next one. But it's things that we can read and sit there and then, oh, that looks fun, you know, because it's scary. And I'm still scared. That first day in 2013, I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But apparently it was all right. And, you know, and I think that's what is the most beautiful part, for, in my perspective, of watching all of you kind of come together, and that I had a part in it. That makes me feel good, makes me happy. And we have a question from YouTube, which is kind of neat. And this is something I struggle with, I think, when I write and when I read writing, and versus when I hear it, is kind of, I guess, related to your approach to the page versus the stage. Is it meant to be read, or is it meant to be heard? Is it meant to be spoken, or is it meant to be seen? And so do you have an approach for anyone that you kind of lean on, or do you write it and then you think to yourself, all right, now what do I do? You know, now it's on the page. So curious to hear.
I think my main approach is mainly just trying to see if people can get something out of my writing. The books that I'm writing, or the novels I'm writing, I should say, is they're superhero based, because I love superheroes. You can see X-Men poster right there, first appearance. And I love having superheroes as this, you know, they're mythological beings. You know, we kind of revere them as gods. They're goddesses, but they're very flawed people. Not a lot of people like want to notice that, and I want to see people can get that from like their lives, because sometimes, you know, balancing work, school, balancing kids, balancing all this can be related to like how Spider-Man balances, you know, being Spider-Man, working, going to school, his social life. So I kind of want to have people get something out of this and apply it to their lives in some way, fashion, like that.
I'm learning that, you know, it's wonderful if a piece is as good read by someone on the page as it is spoken. And, you know, it's always the hope that if you place it properly on the page, they will read it the way the author meant for it to be read or meant for it to be heard. And that sometimes is difficult.
My approach, so when I'm writing, I think about how it sounds like when I read it out loud first, and then that's where I'll kind of place the punctuation for the pauses and grammar, yada, yada, yada. And then once I have all of that written down, I usually kind of write it in more of a block, just like either typed up or on paper. It's just like this block of text. And then when I go to type it up from that draft, then I focus on, you know, spacing it out weird, and like, you know, where are the line breaks, where am I having it aligned on the left, the right, center, you know, and that will then cue the reader like how it's meant to be paced when they're reading it silently to themselves or reading it out loud. So I kind of focus more on my performance of it first, and then kind of in the process of, you know, formatting it on the page, then kind of guide the reader to what that experience would be like when they're just reading on their couch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I used to stress about this a lot, because I basically grew up in slam poetry, you know, at Nuyorican Poetry Cafe and Bowery. And when you grow up in slam poetry, you're trying to get eights and nines and tens, and you're trying to win slams. So you write to have your cadence be within 3 minutes and be catchy, and it takes away a lot of quality writing. I think now what I do is I don't even pay attention. I'll read the stuff on stage. A lot of my stuff for features have to be memorized, but what Zoom's done with the pandemic has allowed me to learn my written pieces even better, stuff in my manuscript even better, and build confidence just reading it. But I think when you overthink that process, that can mess you up. I think when you find your authentic voice, when you find your own style, your own cadence of reading your pieces, you can write almost anything and then learn how that specific piece is supposed to be read, what cadence it needs, where you need to slow down, where you need to pause. So I always encourage writers to not even worry about the stage part. Write what you write, be authentic with the page, and then you can easily learn how that particular poem is supposed to be read for an audience.
I loved your note about being authentic on the page, because I think that that is what really comes out when you are performing your pieces. And I think for me as well, like there's like, so I used to do a lot of theater. I used to do a lot of acting in like the past, and a little bit now, but in the past. And it was just, it's always like a, when I'm writing, it feels like a character is kind of like writing through me sometimes. And so when I'm performing it, I'm performing it as that character. And I'm trying my hardest to kind of get into, you know, what that character would be like, and who they are. And of course, you know, I wrote it, so I have like an idea of that, but sometimes it ends up being a little bit different when I do read it out loud. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I didn't really realize that this is what I was kind of saying. So I always like to read it out loud to myself first as well. I think that there's like really like just involved aspects of like bringing that out into the performance too.
Yeah, well, I like what you said about that with theater. I have a lot of actor friends who will talk about, they'll read the script and the dialogue, and if they read it 10 times, they'll recite it 10 different ways, because the dialogue can evolve, you know, each time. So setting a stage format, it limits you, because if I read the same piece 10 times, it's not going to come out the same way. So to write it just to be for stage, you don't realize how much it takes away from learning your own work and embracing your own work. I mean, that's the best part of when I strayed from slam, because there was times, and a lot of young artists go through this when you're trying to win slams, that you'll do a piece that just gets a standing ovation and it rocks, and then you leave, and then you're like, that poem didn't make me feel anything. You leave empty. You had a standing ovation, but you left feeling like your piece did nothing for you or really for people. It was a nice piece. It was catchy. And then my process was learning to be like, you know what, let me write stories about my abuelita. Let me write stories that are just quality and authentic to me. And then people will either gravitate to it or they won't. It won't be written for stage. It won't be written for what people want to hear. It'll be written so that I can be proud of it, so my son can be proud of it. Work that means something to you. So I think once you just focus on that, learning cadence, learning rhythm, it's something that can just organically happen if you just keep practicing it. Sorry, I spoke too long. I went too deep, but
you know
I just
what?
I was going to add something too about the idea, like, I guess intention a little bit with the writing. And I don't like to over determine a piece of writing with an intention, like this is the goal, you know. I feel like that's, for me, that's a recipe to fail or not live up to what it is I'm trying to say. So there is that like abstract moment of creation that you got to let happen, I guess. But the other day, I don't know what it was. I think I might have, I don't know. I've certainly heard before that performing or or a book can be like a bridge, or a performance can be like a bridge between an audience, a performer and an audience, an artist and a writer and a reader, whatever. And this idea of like, and I was like, oh, well, that's like, in that metaphor, we have this idea of meeting halfway, like between my experience and your experience. And I've noticed that the works that stand out to me the most are the things that are most influential to me, writing wise, or any art, any form of expression wise, is it's less about meeting halfway where that person's at and meeting in like another place. Like there's a whole other place that's been created that I didn't know even existed. And that's like, feels like there's way more, I don't know. I just, I like to imagine that I'm trying to approach that, like that other place, not that halfway place.
Absolutely. Part of what you and Frankie are, that I that I took from it is, for a long time, I kept trying to have some kind of profound and important voice. And I had to speak the way that the person I watched on TV spoke, because, oh man, they're really good and I got to talk like them, or I need to move my hands and do the politician thumb and all of these other things. And then at some point, like Frankie said, you feel empty because it's not you, it's not yours. And one thing that I keep trying to push, and I keep trying to remind myself also, is that my voice and how I say words, either they're dumb or they sound correct or they don't, or whatever it is. Well, that's the way I say my words. And too bad. If you don't like it, then you could say your words how you like, and I'll say my words how I like. And that's it. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to
hold on.
Amanda, go ahead.
I also think that it is when you are not trying to be profound that you become profound. Because I recently wrote an entire manuscript about periods, and I didn't think I was going to do anything profound to that. I was like, I have blood on my hands. I can't fuck my boyfriend right now. Like, and I didn't think anything was going to be like really super meaningful from it. But then when I showed the manuscript to other period having people, they're like, oh my God, I relate to this so much. And I've never talked about this kind of thing with anybody. And it became a profound experience. So I think it's kind of when you're not trying, it's like, again, when you're not trying to do something, you kind of inevitably do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. When I'm trying to, if I try to manufacture something great, it's just a big dump. And if I'm trying to force emotion, I'm trying to force all these things, maybe the words are emotional, maybe the words will, inspire some kind of images or some kind of memories, but it's not genuine, and I don't feel good doing it. And so let's see, Dennis, I'm going to send it to you here, some closing statements if you have any, and then afterwards I'm going to do my, whatever I have to do to close out. So go ahead, Dennis.
Well, hot damn, I'm on the big screen, Ma. Well, it's the first open mic I've done in a couple years, and doing it in the Zoom format, it just makes me think of something like, have you ever wondered that you go into an elevator and this is the only time you're going to be with these people in the elevator, and then they all disperse. It's kind of like a dandelion that you blow when you're a kid, or a corolla of a flower that the petals, you wonder where they're going to go. And I feel that everything that has been spoken since I've come in, it's been imparted on us. It's become part of our DNA. And I find that so wonderful to see, to hear, especially from Frankie, Dwayne, Giovanni, and Judy as well. It's wonderful to hear that's being reciprocated and being taken in. It's building us as well. And I'm so overjoyed, so overcome with such jubilance to see this. That poetry is alive and well, even though it's just on a page, it's silent on the type, but we're thinking about it even now. I find this wonderful to see that it's alive in all of us. And I have to say thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dennis. And so everybody out there, stay in touch. with all of us, with Dennis, with myself, with all of our speakers. You know where to find us: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, www.nervousghostpress.org, ghosts@nervousghostpress.org. And if you would like to reach out to Dennis directly, editor@nervousghostpress.org. Maybe just send him all the emails instead. That might work out better. Keep in touch. If anybody out there is watching here as we kind of shared through this event together live, or later on as it's uploaded to YouTube, if you ever want to join, if you want to be part of these events and have a community, or be part of a community, if you feel like you have none, you have one. It does exist, and it's here, and it's real, and it's growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger and stronger every single day. And so email us, reach out, don't hesitate. And we are always happy to have you. You are always welcome. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the broadcast. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to leave this Zoom room open for all of us to say our goodbyes without anyone else seeing it, because, you know, it gets kind of weird. It gets weird in the Zoom rooms. And so thank you everybody. Have a great rest of April. Have a great
you all.
National Poetry Month, and have a
Great
great
work, everybody. Nice meeting
Thank
you all.
you.